Tonight was the second night of the second round of Democratic presidential debates. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Of course, everyone's watching these debates to see who will emerge as the leading contenders, and that apparently includes Donald Trump, who said last night during an interview on C-SPAN that he'd be watching the debates and offered this hot take.
I'll be watching the debates tonight. You know, if I didn't, you'd say, I can't imagine. You know, I would like to know who I'm going to be running against. Maybe you'll tell me after this interview, right?
You tell me.
I don't know. I mean, I would think the 4 or 5 top ones would seem to have a big edge. You have some people that shouldn't even be wasting time. But I would think the 4 or 5 top ones would be the ones that would be, you know, certainly have the best chance of getting in.
Oh, is that your expert analysis, that the top 4 or 5 candidates have the best chance? It's like a commentator at halftime during the NBA Finals going, I think it's either going to be the Raptors or the Warriors, Ernie. Unless a third outside team sneaks in there. Of course, the dynamic at the first night's debate ended up being mostly Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders fending off a bunch of underdog moderates taking shots at them, like former Congressman and soon-to-be former presidential candidate John Delaney. By the end of the night, he looked like the guy who comes in third on Jeopardy! Even when Warren and Sanders weren't talking, they were winning. Bernie's strategy, of course, involved a lot of arm throwing and finger wagging, like he was reaching to turn off an imaginary light switch. And at one point, when Elizabeth Warren's plan for a wealth tax came up, she literally smiled and rubbed her hands together in glee. Look at how excited she is to tear this guy apart. It's like in Looney Tunes when you're starving and you see a giant turkey leg. We spent the most part of our day figuring out how that would look. Nonetheless, the underdogs have been desperate to spin their debate performances last night. For example, there was this moment when Congressman Tim Ryan thought he scored a point on Bernie during a feisty exchange on the climate crisis.
What do you do with an industry that knowingly, for billions of dollars in short-term profits, is destroying this planet? I say that is criminal activity that cannot be allowed to continue.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Congressman, your response.
Well, yeah, I would just say, I didn't say we couldn't get there till 2040, Bernie. You don't have to yell.
No, I'm sorry. Have you met Bernie Sanders? Of course he has to yell. Yelling is his brand. He read bedtime stories to his kids, and they didn't sleep until they were 35. But Ryan thought that was such a killer line that today, he kind of turned it into a campaign slogan of sorts by selling stickers on his websites that say, you don't have to yell. And while I understand the gist of his point, I'm not sure about the timing. I mean, if there was ever a time to yell in American politics, it's now. That would be like the captain of the Titanic putting up a no swimming sign after hitting the iceberg. Both the moderates and the moderators tried to take shots at Bernie and Warren over Medicare for All. Pundits seemed obsessed with getting them to say that they would raise taxes, even though the reality is that health care costs would be much lower, which is how it works in a bunch of major industrialized nations. And that led to this combative post-debate interview last night, in which Warren depthly battled with MSNBC's Chris Matthews.
There's a lot more money.
Oh, look.
Well, your payroll go up.
No,
you guys dodged that tonight.
No, it's not a dodge. It's
because
about
Jake Tapper kept saying, how much of your tax is going to go up? And you said,
how much are your costs going to go down?
No, different question. How much will your taxes go up?
No, it's how much are your costs?
I have a different question.
It's how much families end up spending.
I know that argument. I know how you're covering it.
It's not just an argument.
But you're covering it. But will you pay more in taxes?
Look,
Why don't you want to answer that question? Because Jake said tonight that's a Republican talking point. It's not a Republican talking point. It's a question.
It's a question about where people are going to come out economically. The question is not, do you have health insurance or not have health insurance? The question is, how much are you going to have to dig in your pocket to pay?
I know that's the answer that you'd like to give, but will your taxes go up?
When Elizabeth Warren says, no, it is the answer, then that's the answer. She was a Harvard professor. You're trying to school her on health care. I didn't know that the MS in MSNBC stood for mansplain. She had to fend off Matthews like Chris Pratt fending off a velociraptor. Then in another post-debate interview, CNN tried to get Warren to take a shot at former Vice President Joe Biden, who was currently leading in the polls, but she firmly batted it down.
For people who are trying to choose between you and former Vice President Biden, why are you a better candidate?
Look, I'm not here to diss any other Democrat. Just get somebody else for that job. That's not me.
Wow, you know you asked a bad question when you found the one job Elizabeth Warren won't do. That was like when you asked the waiter for bread and he goes, "This is not my section." Of course, it's certainly the case that according to the polls, Biden was the front runner coming in, and all eyes seemed to be on him and Senator Kamala Harris. Everyone was asking, will we see Harris destroy a man live on national TV again? Would Biden try to fend off questions by flashing those big old pearly whites again? And would New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio be there to yell over everyone like a guy trying to hail a cab in a rainstorm? Hey, hey, over here, hail! Hey, I was here first. Okay, dang, you don't have to yell. And even before tonight's debate started, things got a little weird when the chair of the Democratic National Committee, Tom Perez, tried to fire up the crowd and call out Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell for blocking bills that Democrats passed in the House. And he used a version of a nursery rhyme.
Old McConnell had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on that farm, he kept all those bills that passed the House, E-I-E-I-O.
I think I speak for everyone when I say E-I-E-I, no. That was the worst. That was the worst Weird Al cover ever. You can't beat Mitch McConnell with nursery rhymes. Nursery rhymes power him like the villain in a horror movie. Whenever he speaks on the floor of the Senate, you can hear children creepily singing in the background.
3 months ago, when Mueller's report cleared the president,
Perez also spoke about the fact that he once had a job working on a garbage truck to take a shot at Trump.
I worked on the back of a trash truck, so I know garbage when I see it. And folks, this administration is a dumpster fire.
It's true, but I would say Trump is less like a dumpster fire and more like the guy who sets the dumpster on fire for the insurance money. Boom, dumpster's gone, now we collect. And then once again, just as they did last night, CNN introduced all the candidates individually, and once again, the lesser-known candidates polling in single digits had to follow the more popular candidates who got much bigger crowd reactions.
Former Vice President Joe Biden. Senator Kamala Harris. Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Man, it sucks for de Blasio to have to follow those two. It's like if you were at Comic-Con and they introduced Iron Man, Captain America, and then Ben Affleck's Daredevil. And once they got out there with all eyes on Harris and Biden, Biden was caught on a mic trying that old Joe Biden charm to preempt a confrontation.
Cozy on me, kid.
Hey, man, if you don't want to seem old, maybe don't talk like you're in a Humphrey Bogart movie. Go easy on me, kid. We'll always have Detroit. Save my Humphrey Bogart impression for the live show. Got it. Sure. Next, you're going to start telling people you're 76 years young. Right off the bat, CNN was desperately interested both in framing the issue of health care from a right-wing perspective and also of getting Harris and Biden to go after each other on that issue.
This week, you released a new health care plan, which would preserve private insurance and take 10 years to phase in. Vice President Biden's campaign calls your plan, quote, a have-it-every-which-way approach, and says it's just part of a confusing pattern of equivocating about your health care stance. What do you say to that?
Well, they're probably confused because they've not read it.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Well, my response is that the senators had several plans so far. You can't beat President Trump with double talk on this plan.
Your response, Senator Harris?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, Vice President Biden, you're just simply inaccurate in what you're describing.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, your response?
The plan, no matter how you cut it, costs $3 trillion.
CNN was so desperate to get them to fight, they were like Romans at the Colosseum. Healthcare plans. He says yours is foolish. You say his is cruel. Now fight for our pleasure. It seemed like every question was framed as an attack from someone else on stage. In fact, at one point, Cory Booker pointed out the boxing match nature of the questions by bringing up Donald Trump.
Well, first of all, let me just say that the person that's enjoying this debate most right now is Donald Trump, as we pit Democrats against each other, while he is working right now to take away Americans' health care.
Trump might be enjoying the fighting, but there's no way he's enjoying all the specific policy details. Trump watches policy debates the way the rest of us watch foreign movies. I don't know what they're talking about, but the fight scenes are amazing. In fact, the CNN moderators were so interested in getting the candidates to go after each other that all night they were cutting people off before they could finish their answers just so they could go to someone else for a response.
Coverage like mental health care,
Thank you,
dental
Mr. Mayor.
care.
To make it harder for you to afford it,
Thank you,
even if you
Senator
have pre-existing.
Demoralizing us in face of the real enemy here.
Thank
And
you,
I'm
Senator.
Our plan covers
Thank you,
everyone
Senator.
and gives people choice.
Thank you, Senator.
My God, this debate was like a game of taboo where every word was forbidden. I believe we need health. I'm sorry, Senator, you can't say the word health. It's on the card. In fact, there were multiple times when Biden was answering a question and then literally just stopped talking in the middle of his sentence when he was cut off.
The Biden plan, which is Obamacare.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you.
It's a crime, and it's not one that, in fact,
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
beyond the cost of inflation from this point on.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
He just gave up so easily. Didn't even finish his... It's like when your grandpa tries to speak up at the dinner table and no one hears him. I have a story about restaurant... never mind. How are you going to fight for America when you can't even fight through the timer? Also, you know if you end up with the nominee and you run against Donald Trump, he's never going to stop talking. You're going to have to talk over him. Have you seen him? His mouth never stops moving. He's always fighting with reporters and doing that thing where he draws little boxes with his hands. I was watching the debate tonight on a TV shaped like this, but then I got bored and switched to The Bachelorette. One of the big divides in the debate was over health insurance, with the more progressive candidates on stage wanting to expand Medicare through various versions of Medicare for All. But Biden's plan is more modest, claiming he would allow people to keep their private insurance if they like it.
The idea that this is somehow a bad idea, no one has to keep their private insurance. But if they would like their insurance, they should be able to keep it. Nothing is demanded in my plan that there be private insurance. It says if the 160 million people who have it say they like their employer insurance, they should have a right to have it.
I'm sorry, but who likes their private insurance? Nobody likes going to the ER for a sprained ankle and then getting 58 envelopes in the mail from Anthem. I keep hearing this talking point from moderates. I've never heard anyone say, you can take my HMO when you pry from my cold, dead hands, which will probably be pretty soon because it doesn't cover my meds. Later, Biden took on de Blasio over the price of Medicare for All, claiming it would cost too much, even though several candidates have laid out specific detailed plans for how they would pay for it, and Biden used this line on de Blasio.
The fact of the matter is that there will be a deductible. It will be a deductible in their paycheck. Bernie acknowledges it. Bernie acknowledges it. $30 trillion has to ultimately be paid. And I don't know what math you do in New York. I don't know what math you do in California, but I tell you, that's a lot of money.
Now be careful, because the most common math equation in New York is adding go to F yourself. Biden also pushed back on criticism of his more moderate plan and busted out one of his old catchphrases.
What we got is a public option that, in fact, would allow anybody to buy in. No one has to keep their private insurance. They can buy into this plan, and they can buy into it with a $1,000 deductible and never have to pay more than 8.5% of their income when they do it. And if they don't have any money, they get in free. So this idea is a bunch of malarkey.
There it is! Mwah! A bunch of malarkey is Joe Biden's more cowbell. And I love it, but again, it does make him seem a little old. It's something you expect to hear shouted from atop an old-timey bicycle. 5 cents for a Nickelodeon, that's a bunch of malarkey! The debate then shifted to criminal justice reform with a specific focus on Biden's record on several bills, including the 1994 crime bill. First, Biden seemed to get confused and gave Booker a new title.
The fact is that the bills that the future president here, that the senator is talking about.
Wait, what? Joe Biden. Did he just endorse Cory Booker? Did he forget that he's also running for president? Oh, what? This is a presidential debate? Oh, I'm just here to mix it up and have fun. It's malarkey time. Let's get malarkey. Then, Biden actually tried to question Booker's record as mayor of Newark, and it did not end well for Biden.
We have a system right now that's broken, and if you want to compare records, and frankly, I'm shocked that you do, I am happy to do that.
Why did you announce on the first day a zero-tolerance policy of stop and frisk and hire Rudy Giuliani's guy in 2007 when I was trying to get rid of the crack cocaine?
Mr. Vice President, there's a saying in my community, you're dipping into the Kool-Aid and you don't even know the flavor.
Damn. There is no way Biden even knows what that means, because I am 35 years younger than him, and I don't know what that means. Biden probably took it literally. Kool-Aid, I can't have all that sugar. Then finally, the debate moved on to the climate crisis. Several candidates have signed on to the Green New Deal. The moderators asked Senator Kirsten Gillibrand if such an ambitious plan was possible, and she busted out this one-liner.
You are a co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, which includes the guarantee of a job with medical leave, paid vacations, and retirement security for everyone in America. Explain how that's realistic.
So the first thing that I'm going to do when I'm president is I'm going to Clorox the Oval Office.
Okay, first of all, I don't think it's legal to use bleach on an active crime scene. Secondly, you're definitely going to need something stronger than Clorox. I would try burning sage or holding a seance. And you're going to need a belt sander just to get the ketchup stains off the desk. Then it came time for the closing statements, a chance for candidates to direct voters to their websites or give them a number to text to join the campaign. But when Biden had his chance, he seemed to garble it.
If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330.
Joe 3033. Is that the name of your homemade rocket ship? Did you just accidentally tell everyone your ATM PIN number? Or is this some sort of weird clue? It's like being in an escape room. What does it say under that lamp? Go to Joe 3033. We need the clue master. Clue master! It really doesn't work when Joe Biden tries to seem young and hip. Go to Joe 30330 on the World Wide Web. Hey, you know what? Throw a .com on there if you want. Once again, the debate showcased sharp differences on important issues. Whatever you think of the candidates, it was nice to hear 10 people speak coherently about actual policies. Meanwhile, Trump is probably wandering around the White House rambling to his aides about how he's going to be president until the year
30330.
This has been a closer look.